people, Unity here again, and we're going to talk about the same thing we talked about last time, term limits, because you have the power to institute term limits. All you have to do is stop voting for the same people for a third term. 2 and you're through. The reason term limits are so important, we've gone over in past episodes, but term limits give we the people power back. Right now, we the people have lost our power. The people in Washington do whatever the heck they want to do, and they don't really care about you until it's time to get your vote. And I'm talking about Democrats and Republicans. I'm talking about the institution of Washington government. I am not a Democrat or a Republican. I could care less about either side. Okay? I care about you and us, we the people. That's who I care about. And that's who you should care about. Because in the final analysis, that's all that matters, is that we the people and our wisdom get the government to do what it needs to do, which is institute correct policy. I found out through feedback from many people who watch the broadcast, and many people watch it. I mean, it's in different formats and it's in different places, but it's very well watched, and people are starting to understand it, and people are starting to get on board. This 80 is instant term limits. We don't have to put it in, a congressional hearing. We don't have to put it into a constitutional amendment. We just have to stop voting for people for a third term. I'm going to tell you why it's so important. There's only 2 types of government in today's society across the world. Only 2 types. Now, there may be variations and subcategories for these different types of governments, but there's only basically 2 types of governments. There's democracies, and we're going to define that. And there are dictatorships. We're going to define that. In a democracy, one citizen, one vote, of some legal age, they get to vote. And they vote for representatives who are going to go and institute the will of the people. That's the way a democracy is supposed to work. People vote, the majority rules, and the majority should be represented by senators, Congress, people in the House of Representatives that make laws that make the country better. That's the way a democracy is supposed to work. That's one form of government. The other form is a dictatorship. Now, there's different kinds of dictatorships. Some of them are even called monarchs, or monarchies, or strongmen. But in a dictatorship, you have basically one man or one family that just imposes its will on a whole country because they have the army behind them and they have confiscated much of the country's wealth. So you have that like Putin would be in a dictatorship, or Kim Jong-un, or the mullahs that run Iran, or just the royal family used to be like that, but now it's kind of more of a monarchy and a democracy. But going across many, many countries, you have different forms, and then you have some hybrids. What the United States of America is turning into is it's sliding from a democracy to a dictatorship by committee. Now, why would I say that? We don't have a dictator. There's no Putin. There's no, strong man. We elect our officials, correct? But let's back up. Do they go to Washington and represent the will of the people? Do they do that? Yes or no? No. If they did, we wouldn't have these useless wars. We wouldn't have $35 trillion deficit. we wouldn't have zero borders. That's not the will of the people, okay? We wouldn't have inflation as high as it is. That's not the will of the people. A lot of things happen because a committee in Washington decided it was going to happen, whether you liked it or not, no matter who you voted for. So that's what we'd like to call a dictatorship by committee. They're going to dictate to you whether you like it or not, whether you think a $35 trillion deficit is cool. They're going to listen to them. There's a convention going on this week. They're going to tell you how they're going to spend $6, $7, $8 more trillion to make it up $40 trillion. I told you before, there is a tipping point. When the deficit gets so high, the interest is more than they can pull from you. That's why you might hear some people talking about, 60, 70% tax brackets should come back. Well, that's when they've spent so much money that they extracting it from you at a normal rate, the 20, 30, 40% rate, is not good enough. They need to extract more. So you have democracy, and 80 will give you the ability to have a true democracy, meaning that we have some power. Just let Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell not get reelected. What? Or, Pelosi or Grassley or any of these people who they don't even get primaried. But let 80 stop people from voting for them. You would have Washington's attention and you would have Washington's compliance to a certain degree. It's hard to compete with the K Street lobbyists. They pour billions into controlling that 535 people, the House of Representatives and the Senate. They throw billions with a B in there to control those people, to make them vote for what they want, not for what you want. So if we want to stay away from dictatorship by committee, you need 80. You need term limits. It's the only tool we really have to reach back and try to claw back some of that control that we the people should have, because we the people are wiser than the people in Washington, D.C. Can't you understand that? We have more sense than them. I mean, let me tell you something. When a politician's running for office and they say they have experience, run from them. Make up your mind, I'm not voting for that person. Experience when it comes to Washington, D.C. is bad. It is, really. You got Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell. How long have they been in there? What, 30 years, 40 years, something like that? What have they done good? Name it. You keep voting them in. Tell me what they did good. John McCain was in the Senate and politics for ever since he, got out of the military. Nancy Pelosi, I don't know where she came from. What has she ever done that made the life of we the people better? Okay? See, that's why experience is bad. The longer they stay in there, the more entrenched they become with lobbyist money, the more favors they owe special interest groups. And so the longer they stay in there, the more experience they have, the worse it is for us. When a politician says, I've got decades of experience, run. Okay? Hide your wallet. It's bad. Decades of experience in Washington, D.C. is toxic. Okay? Another thing that comes out of Washington, D.C. is this trick called bipartisan. There's a big problem facing the United States. It could be in immigration, it could be in wars, or it could be with the economy, it can be in the ecology. But when they say, hey, we've got a solution and it's bipartisan, do you know what that really means? I'm going to break it down to you. Bipartisan means some Democrats and some Republicans got together and made a compromise bill that's not going to fix anything, but it's going to tell you that they're working on your behalf. And see, we reached across the aisle and we held hands and we came up with a bill for the American people. And I'm going to give you an example. There was a bill called the McCain-Feingold bill, and it was supposed to take all the money out of politics, the dirty money, the influence peddling type of money out of politics. And it was bipartisan. And after McCain-Feingold passed, the money going into politics went through the roof. It did the opposite. Bipartisan does not mean good for we the people. Get that in your head. When they say bipartisan, start looking into the details, okay? They pass bills and laws all the time. Sometimes they give them trick names like the Inflation Reduction Act, and then inflation actually goes up. So it's trickery, okay? The people in DC like to trick you. They like to play with your mind. So bipartisan means nothing. It does not mean it's good, okay? It does not mean it's going to work. They've had so many bipartisan gun control bills, but people keep getting shot in Chicago and Atlanta and LA and Detroit and New Orleans, and they get shot every weekend. And these bills are supposed to help. They don't. Bipartisan means I came up with a solution on the left, you came up with a solution on the right. We're going to take a little piece out of both that kind of negate each other, and we're going to call it a bipartisan bill, and it's not going to change anything, but it's not going to cost any of us any votes. So, I told you, solutions cost votes. The Republicans and the Democrats keep problems elevated without solutions. They keep these problems elevated without solutions, so they can always promise you a solution to get your vote. Okay? How many times have they told you they're going to end childhood hunger? How many times have they told you they're going to, we're going to make the rich pay their fair share? How many times have you heard that? The rich are going to pay their fair share. They keep saying that. We're going to get gun control. We're going to get guns out of the hands of criminals. They keep saying that. They keep passing bills. They keep passing laws. And it never works. Okay? It never works. Because solutions cost votes. And they crave votes. That's why you have to withhold your vote for a third term. I'm telling you, people, believe me, trust me, this is the greatest revolution that we the people could ever perceive of pulling off. And this is why it's great. You don't have to march. You don't have to picket. You don't have to shout or yell or throw a Molotov cocktail. You don't have to write your congressman. You don't have to write your senator. All you have to do is stop voting for a third term. If we can get the mass, we can get some critical mass going here. 10, 15, 20 million people say, I'm not going to vote for a third. You will have Washington's attention, and they will start listening to we the people. Thanks a lot for listening to me, because I'm one of those we the people, and so are you. If we don't do 80 and the deficit goes to 40, 50 trillion and the country's bankrupt and we're looking like Venezuela, inflation through the roof, bread lines, gas lines. If that happens, it's your fault because you have the power to stop it. And it's called 80. Anyone except the incumbent. Stop voting for these people who keep running the same game on you every election cycle. There we have it. I'll talk to you next time. Anyone except the incumbent.